They thought he was dead. Just another casualty of war. Lost, forgotten, and buried in the chaos of metal corridors and alien stars. But deep within the ventilation shafts, beyond the flickering lights and behind the walls of their own base, he lived. Silent. Watching. Waiting. 6 years. Now, he's ready. The Xelari base floated in orbit around a dim red gas giant, its surface wreathed in storm bands and radioactive clouds. Inside, the corridors were sleek, sterile, humming with the low pulse of alien machinery, a perfect expression of cold, calculated order. Its crew, a mix of science and security personnel, moved with practiced efficiency. They believed themselves untouchable. This base, after all, was hidden, cloaked, buried in false transmissions, buried in a dead zone of space. It was their black site, their forgotten lab. It was where they brought prisoners from wars no one remembered, where experiments were done away from the eyes of the Galactic Council. But something was wrong. It began with power anomalies. Cameras would blink off for seconds, just enough to miss something. Food supplies and storage were disappearing, tiny amounts, but too regularly to be chance. Doors would open without access codes. The crew blamed it on system decay. Rats, old programming. But there were no rats on Xelari worlds. They didn't know that deep in the vent shafts, crawling in the dark like a ghost, was a man. A human. A soldier, left for dead after a failed infiltration raid nearly 6 years ago. He had been broken then, ribs shattered, leg twisted, face burned. But he didn't die. They threw him in a med cell and forgot him after his vitals flatlined. No one noticed that the heartbeat restarted 2 minutes later, that the sedative stopped working, that he escaped. He spent the first year just surviving, eating from the waste units, drinking from coolant drips, learning their routines. He mapped the ducts with blood and fingernails, slept wedged between humming generators. He learned the layout, the codes, the language. He turned his pain into purpose, his rage into ritual. The second year, he started sabotaging. Nothing big. Just enough to remind himself he was alive. A crack pipe here. A corrupted drive there. Once, he whispered through the intercoms at night, just to see if they'd react. They didn't. They thought it was interference. His laughter echoed in the vents. By the 4th year, the crew began transferring out. Some complained of ghosts. Others of paranoia. A few went missing entirely, chalked up to desertion or cosmic accidents. But he knew. He marked their faces in the dark, one by one, like tally marks on the walls. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was haunting. Then, in the 6th year, something changed. A new administrator arrived, taller than the others, armored in ceremonial plates, surrounded by drones. Her name was Veltana, and she wasn't here to manage. She was here to cleanse. She reviewed the data, the anomalies, and concluded what no one else had dared to say aloud. There was a foreign entity inside the base. She locked down sections, cut power to maintenance shafts, sent seekers into the ventilation system. They found nothing, just heat signatures that vanished, scratches that led nowhere. But she didn't give up. That was her mistake, because on the 6th night of her purge, her private quarters powered down at exactly 3:14. Lights off, doors locked, atmosphere disabled for exactly 3 minutes. And when it came back on, her bed was soaked in blood. She survived, barely. But she never saw what hit her. The crew was in chaos now. Some refused to leave their rooms. Others patrolled the holes in threes. But it didn't matter. He wasn't in the holes. He was in the walls. Every bolt, every wire. He knew them. He was the ghost of this place now. And he had a plan. They never asked why he stayed. Why he didn't steal the ship and flee. Why, with all his knowledge and stolen access, he remained in the vents like a rabid animal. But if they had asked, he would have told them. Because this base is mine now. And every scream that echoes through it belongs to me. And far away, on Earth, no one even remembered his name. No medals were waiting. No homecoming. No flag. Just the silence of space and the heartbeat of a man too angry to die. The next phase began with a message. Not to the Xelari, but to a human listening post 3 systems away. An encrypted signal hidden in the static of deep space noise. The message was just 3 words. I am inside. It was enough. Within days, a Black Ops human strike team arrived. Quiet, fast, efficient. But when they breached the base, they found only one Xelari survivor, a medic, half-mad, whispering in his own tongue about shadows that bled in humans that didn't die. They found the soldier too. Not in a cell. Not in the med bay. But sitting at the main console, surrounded by shut-down systems and empty armor. He looked thin, his beard like steel wire, his eyes sunken, but alive. Fiercely alive. When they asked his name, he just smiled. "I think I've forgotten," he said. "But they called me Ghost." He didn't ask for extraction. He asked to stay. "This place listens to me now," he whispered. "Let me keep it. Let me make it ours." And back on Earth, when Command reviewed the footage, they didn't see madness. They saw potential. A base, built by aliens, run by a man who had become myth. A fortress behind enemy lines, haunted not by ghosts, but by a human who refused to die. And somewhere in the walls of that base, beneath the humming vents and the cold silence, he waited. Not for rescue, but for the next war. Because the galaxy had forgotten humanity's oldest lesson. You don't bury humans in metal cages. You just give them the tools to rise. They called the operation ***silent NX***, a name that slid off classified briefings like a whisper of permission. While bureaucrats on Earth argued over treaties and optics, Ghost traced every cable in the base's skeleton, learning its new pulse the way others memorize prayers. He spoke softly into open ducts, coaxing dormant subsystems to life. The strike team watched, unsettled. To them it felt less like engineering and more like communion with a restless spirit. Within 48 hours, Ghost had turned the alien habitation ring into a self-contained habitat. Food printers calibrated to human proteins. Quarters purged of Xelari pheromones. Lights dimmed to a warm terrestrial amber. The base's AI, a crystalline logic core meant to respond only to Xelari biosign, now recognized his scarred fingerprints as root authority. No one asked how he'd done it. Some things, the team decided, were better left as miracles. But the galaxy doesn't grant quiet for long. On the 70th hour, scattered sensors picked up a ripple across subspace, an encrypted Xelari distress ping, low priority, repeating. It originated 2 sectors away, too distant to be a direct call for help, too close to ignore. Ghost's eyes narrowed at the readout. He tapped the console, listening to the silence between pulses. "Probe," he said at last. "They're sweeping for survivors, or for me." Command wanted extraction. The strike team argued for demolition charges and a clean exit. Ghost only smiled, thin, patient, endlessly tired. "You don't demolish leverage," he murmured. "You sharpen it." So they stayed. The next day, the ping stopped. In its place bloomed something worse. A gravity shadow the size of a dreadnought sliding through the void just beyond sensor horizon. The Xelari had dispatched a ***sanitizer vessel ***, part warship, part mobile incinerator, designed to erase evidence, witnesses, and inconvenient truths. It traveled dark, with emissions damped, its log entries already encrypted for tribunals that would never convene. Inside the commandeered base, atmosphere tasted metallic with anticipation. Ghost moved like a conductor among restless musicians, assigning the strike team to choke points, rewiring power grids into traps, rewriting targeting subroutines so the base's own railguns would wait. Sleeping dogs with metal teeth. He spent an hour alone in the echoing medical bay, staring at the slab where the Xelari had abandoned his body years ago. On the floor, under the cot, he found the notch marks he'd carved during fever nights, days blurred into scratches, scratches into meaning. He ran a fingertip across the groove of the final tally, felt the ridges, and allowed himself one breath of memory before sealing the door and killing the lights. The dreadnought drifted into visual range 11 hours later, a leviathan of obsidian alloy eclipsing the gas giant's sullen glow. It broadcast no challenge, no ultimatum. Sanitizers never negotiated. They approached from the planet's night side, intending to vent the base into space, sweep the debris into the clouds, and proclaim the incident resolved. Ghost let them come. When the dreadnought fired its first warning beam, a silent lance of ultraviolet light designed to blind senses, he shut down every reactor, plunging the station into perfect darkness. To Xelari scanners it looked as though the target had already been scuttled. The dreadnought advanced, hangar doors yawning open for boarding drones. That was when Ghost spoke across the void. His voice rode the comm channel in raw analog. No encryption, No embellishment, just a human cadence, ragged and cold. 6 years, he said. I was the whisper in your walls. Now hear me in your bones. The dreadnought hesitated. A half-second pause, barely perceptible, but enough. Ghost triggered the vents he'd seeded with liquid metallic hydrogen. Plumes ignited into a false reactor breach, masking the launch of 6 jury-rigged drop pods. They were stripped escape capsules, each crammed with strike team Marines and packets of black ice code targeting Xelari cybernetics. They hit the dreadnought like shotgun pellets. Inside the colossal ship, lights failed, bulkheads sealed at random, life support pumped breathable toxins. Marines poured through corridors, broadcasting Ghost's voice on every frequency. The Xelari had doctrine for boarding actions, but nothing in their manuals prepared them for enemies who weaponized *** their own fear ***. By the time the Marines reached the bridge, half the crew had fled into escape tubes that dutifully ejected them into the storm bands of the gas giant below. Ghost watched it unfold from his command chair, an alien throne accepting a human king. He didn't exult. He simply noted the pattern of chaos, committing it to memory for wars yet unlived. At 0317 station time, the dreadnought began transmission, a single, looping distress call in flawless English. *** Station Delta is secure. Await further human instructions. ***. Earth received it 32 minutes later. Across subterranean bunkers and orbiting command hubs, admirals looked at each other with a mix of dread and wonder. In one move, Ghost had delivered them a stealth station *** and *** a dreadnought. The balance of power tilted. A blade leaned just slightly toward the human edge. But inside the walls of the stolen base, Ghost heard a different sound, scratching. Somewhere in the sealed research wing, a place even he hadn't opened, something was alive. Not Xelari. Not human. A contingency the aliens never documented in any log. It raked at Durasteel with carapace claws, rhythm slow and patient, as if counting the seconds until release. Ghost stood in the empty corridor, listening to the echoes. He recognized the cadence, one scratch short, one scratch long, over and over. A prisoner's code, older than stars. He whispered to the base, opening air ducts, coaxing senses to life. A holofeed sputtered on, darkness broken by a sliver of light, enough to reveal a pair of eyes, luminescent, reptilian, and undeniably sentient. The creature tilted its head, mirroring the camera's movement, then spoke in accented galactic basic. Human, it hissed. Will you be the wall, or the door? Ghost felt a shiver run through memories long calcified. He'd spent 6 years becoming a wall. But in his hands lay keys stolen from every lock in this place, and beyond those locks waited truths that could shatter more than Xelari pride. He stepped forward, palm on the access panel. Somewhere behind him, distant thunder rumbled as the captured dreadnought docked. Steel meeting steel, history meeting consequence. The strike team captain called for status report, her voice taut with victory. Ghost didn't answer. His eyes were on the door, on the unknown prisoner tapping codes in the dark. Because vengeance had been only the first chapter, and walls, eventually, always become gateways. Ghost keyed the panel with steady fingers, feeling the tremor of old wounds flare beneath scar tissue. The seal released with a sigh like air remembering life. The door slid aside just enough to reveal a narrow cell framed in dim orange emergency light. Inside crouched the creature, taller than a human, limbs coiled with lean muscle, scales the color of burnt copper. Shackles circled its wrists, though the metal looked more ornamental than restraining. Anything that survived this long in that confinement was there by agreement, not force. Its eyes fixed on Ghost, pupils thin vertical slits that widened as they adjusted to the hallway glow. Without rising, it dipped its head in the smallest nod, a warrior's greeting across species lines. I was captured on the day you first entered their walls, it said in a low rasp. I counted your steps. Your breath became my clock. 6 cycles, human. 6. And still you beat them. Ghost didn't respond immediately. He scanned the chamber, etched glyphs along the bulkhead, apparently carved with a claw tip, broken data tablets piled like bones, one intact hydration tube dripping onto the floor. No surveillance nodes. Veltana must have isolated this room when she arrived, hoping to forget it existed. Ghost remembered a phrase in Xelari tactical doctrine. Asterisk contain the unknown. Interrogate later. Never integrate that asterisk. It explained why they'd left a sentient prisoner unstudied. Fear disguised as protocol. What did they want from you? He asked. Proof, the creature replied. My kind were the first they conquered. They feared our storytellers, so they stored me here, far from any mind I might ignite. Ghost glanced at the scratched glyphs again, stories etched into steel, waiting for a reader. He felt the familiarity of that impulse, recording truth when voice alone could not carry it. He stepped into the cell and the door sealed behind him, cutting them off from the curious whispers of the strike team channel. My name is... He hesitated, realizing the language of his birth felt foreign in this cave of echoes. Ghost, he finished softly. The prisoner's eyes brightened. Then I will call you what you are, a revenant. It extended its bound wrists. Ghost understood the request. Freedom must be offered, not seized. He unsheathed a salvage plasma cutter, sliced the ornate shackles. They fell with a chime that rang down the corridor like a bell-tolling shift change. The creature unfurled to full height, nearly a head taller than Ghost, then knelt, touching two claws to the floor in a gesture of solemn pledge. Where do we go from here? Ghost asked. The creature raised its gaze toward the ceiling, as though sensing something beyond sheets of metal. Your home world prepares for a war of fleets, it said. But the Xelari sanitize because they already smell defeat. They fear what waits behind them, another empire. One older. One that regards both our species as children playing with broken toys. Ghost's pulse quickened. He'd heard rumors and intercepted chatter. Distant systems gone dark. Stations emptied without a trace. The hush of governments too terrified to issue warnings. If a larger predator circled the galactic herd, humanity's stolen advantage could evaporate in a single shadow. Tell me everything, Ghost said. And the prisoner did. Story pouring out in a cadence more ancient than FTL. Of star eaters that replace suns with quantum shadows. Of emissaries who speak in dreams. Of civilizations that obey or vanish. It named them asterisk the quiet host star. The Xelari sanitizer, now captive in dock, had fled their perimeter more than it sought to contain Ghost. Ghost absorbed each detail, aligning it with scraps of intelligence, his mind drawing vectors the way his hands once traced ducts. Outside the cell, Marines kept uneasy watches, their rifles steady but their hearts wondering why their commander lingered in a room with a myth. At last, Ghost stood. We can't hold this base if the quiet host arrives. We'd be insects in candlelight. The prisoner, whom Ghost now thought of as asterisk scribe asterisk, tilted its head. Walls, revenant, are not merely to hide behind. They shape the direction of an explosion. Ghost's lips curved, the first true smile since he'd felt Earth's gravity long ago. Then we weaponized the base, turn every corridor into a story the host can't ignore. How? Scribe asked. We bait them, Ghost said, voice calm as a surgeon's cut. Broadcast a signal, truth in a frequency they'll trace. Let them come, let them open every door, and when they step inside, we give them what the Xelari feared most. He looked around at the etched glyphs, the shackled memories, the dreadnought docked outside, waiting for orders. We give them asterisk us asterisk, humans who will survive in walls, stories that survive in minds, and allies who survive in myths. Scribe's pupils widened, a glint of admiration or perhaps anticipation. Your species fights with rage. Mine fights with narrative. Together, we teach the galaxy to fear the echoes. Ghost tapped his comm bead. Captain Linares, clear the primary data array. I'm uploading a new manifesto. And prep the dreadnought's main antenna. We're about to shout into the dark. Aye, Commander, came the reply, laced with wary respect. Ghost turned toward the corridor. Scribe followed, stepping out of the cell for the first time in half a decade. The lighting panels flickered as if the base itself noticed the change in occupancy, its Ghost welcoming a second Spectre. In the distant hangar, engineers hurried to retrofit alien weapon mounts for human ammo magazines. Elsewhere, the station's AI recalculated firing solutions along corridors, targets redesignated from Xelari intruders to inbound unknowns. Through it all, Ghost orchestrated like a maestro, each command smooth, decisive, quiet. Hours later, the dreadnought's massive dish swung outward, aligning with the void between stars. Ghost stood on the observation deck, Scribe beside him, and spoke into the MIC. His words rode a carrier wave amplified to system-wide intensity, translated into every tongue humanity had catalogued, and several it had not. I am the wall you left hollow, his voice declared. I am the story you tried to erase. We are alive, and we are listening. Enter, if you dare, and find out how loud ghosts can scream. The transmission cut. Silence returned. In that hush, Ghost listened, not for footsteps or alarms, but for the slow-building roar of cosmic consequence. He felt no fear, only the steadiness of purpose that had once kept a shattered soldier crawling through metal veins. Beside him, Scribe traced a claw along the viewport's edge, carving a single line of script only Ghost could read in the glass reflection. Asterisk every fortress becomes a lighthouse, if one soul inside burns bright enough. Asterisk. Outside, the gas giant rolled on, storm bands swirling like bruises. Somewhere beyond, in the hush between galaxies, something heard the call. Ghost closed his eyes, remembering the taste of recycled air, the rasp of panels beneath his crawling palms, the heartbeat that refused to stop. He opened them again, gaze hard as forged steel. The walls are ready, he whispered, and somewhere in the darkness, the universe took one inevitable step closer. 3 days passed. Silence held like the moment before a scream. The dreadnought's senses were tuned to madness, quantum fluctuation monitors, tachyon echo filters, dream state waveform recorders. Ghost had turned every detection system inward and outward, probing the galaxy not for ships or fleets, but for signs of Asterisk presence star. The kind of presence that twisted data into ghosts, erased satellites without blast marks, and whispered equations into sleeping minds. Then the stars blinked. It was subtle at first, infrared readings bending, gravitational lenses tightening like pupils. Then came the signal, not a message, but a sensation. Half the strike team collapsed from migraines. Scribe dropped to one knee, exhaling frost into vacuum-sealed air. And Ghost, standing at the center of the command deck, closed his eyes. He felt it, not as sound or sight, but a pressure behind thought. Like a door creaking open in a house he hadn't known he lived in. The quiet host had heard the call. They are coming, Scribe rasped. Not by ship, by Asterisk concept star. On the main screen, reality began to ripple. The gas giant's orbit shifted by a micron, its gravitational pull slightly off-center. Stars near its edge now looped in impossible paths. One of the Marines screamed, just a noise, primal and raw, before tearing off his comm headset and curling into a corner. Ghost made a note, asterisk, no one hears the host without a cost. Asterisk. But he did not look away. Instead, he walked to the center console, keyed in a deep core override, and activated asterisk protocol Seraphim asterisk, the plan he had written in the dark months between sabotage and survival. It was never meant to defeat the host. It was meant to make them notice something else. The base's entire memory core began to upload, not to the humans, not to the galactic net, but to open quantum band space. A raw stream of chaos, human emotions, historical failures, genocides, miracles, symphonies, riots, births, betrayals, myths. Ghost dumped everything the unfiltered truth of what it meant to be a star. A species that built poetry from war and laughter from extinction. I give you this, he whispered. Not as a weapon, not as surrender, but as fire. Now let's see if you fear burning. And then, the host replied. Not in words, in pressure. The temperature dropped 4 degrees in an instant. The base's lights flickered and stayed off. For 6 whole seconds, reality became thin star. Walls shivered like canvas. Time slipped out of sync. And the station's AI, designed by both human and alien minds, spoke one final sentence before going permanently silent. Asterisk, I see you, Ghost. I see your story. Asterisk. Then the stars snapped back into place. The dreadnought systems rebooted. The gravitational pull normalized. One by one, the crew stirred from nausea and blackout. But on the long-range scanners, something had changed. The quiet host was gone. Not fled. Not destroyed. Simply absent. As if their attention had shifted elsewhere, satisfied or unsettled. None could say. Scribe stood beside Ghost, shaking. They do not leave human. They embed. What did you give them? Ghost exhaled, turning away from the console. Truth. And if they retain, they will, he said. But next time, they won't find us begging. He issued the next order calmly, as if asking for coffee. Initiate Project Crucible. We build 10 more bases. In 10 forgotten systems, each one manned by ghosts. But why? Asked Captain Linares, voice hoarse from the pressure shift. Because now we know what draws the dark, and what survives it. The project began within the hour. Earth approved without hesitation, still stunned by what Ghost had achieved. No longer was humanity the upstart species begging for recognition. Now they were ***, a force ***, a rumor, a strategy. Ghost did not return to Earth. He remained aboard the base. His base, walking its halls, engraving plans into its steel. He taught new recruits how to live in walls, how to wait, how to listen to silence without losing yourself, and above all, how to turn a forgotten corner of the galaxy into a weapon made of memory, madness, and meaning. Years would pass. Battles would rise and fall. Species would change. But legends of ***, the human in the walls *** would remain. Not as a ghost story, but as a warning. A reminder that even when crushed, discarded, and buried, *** humanity does not die. It adapts. It becomes the silence you fear, the voice you ignored, the last breath before your systems failed. ***. And somewhere, in the cold between stars, Ghost waited again. Not as a man, but as a story you couldn't erase. Years turned to decades. Across the fractured arms of the galaxy, whispers spread faster than ships. Colonies far from Sol's light began to share one phrase across encrypted networks and midnight fireside conversations. ***, beware the stations that speak in dead languages. ***, because in every sector where the quiet host had once darkened the stars, a new signal would bloom months later. A pulse of data composed not of warnings, but * memory star. A human voice, slightly distorted, always beginning the same way. ***, this is Ghost. If you're hearing this, it's already too late for silence. ***. Each signal came from stations no one remembered building, nestled into asteroids, forgotten moons, abandoned Xelari relics. These stations were never officially mapped, but they existed. And they weren't broadcasting threats, they were broadcasting ***, humanity ***. Raw, messy, undeniably alive. And the host stayed away. Some scholars proposed theories that humanity's emotional spectrum acted like a viral resistance, infecting the psychic latticework of host architecture. Others argued it was simpler. Humans were too loud, too stubborn, too unpredictable to fold neatly into the pattern of extinction. Either way, the pattern was clear. Where Ghost had seeded his story, ***, the quiet host didn't retain ***. Command tried to recall him. Earth sent emissaries. He ignored them all. Even when offered a medal shaped from the metal of the first recovered dreadnought, Ghost declined. He didn't need honors. He had already won. But he was not alone anymore. Scribe stayed by his side, now acting as translator and mythkeeper. More of Scribe's kind had been liberated from old Xelari ruins, each bearing different glyphs, different stories, all of them echoing Ghost's doctrine. Survive. Witness. Echo. Together, they turned the station not into a fortress, but a *** temple ***. New recruits, human and otherwise, began to arrive in secret. Those who didn't fit the structure of traditional militaries. Those too broken for politics, too clever for command. Ghost trained them personally. He taught them how to live without sunlight, how to map the breadth of a corridor, how to extract meaning from malfunction, and most importantly, how to wait, not idly, but with purpose. How to let time work like gravity, slow, quiet, inevitable. One by one, these disciples went into the dark. Some took over derelict beacons. Others buried themselves inside pre-war bunkers left adrift in orbital decay. A few simply vanished, leaving only rumors behind. And slowly, the galaxy changed. Not through conquest, not through fleets, but through ***, fear ***. The Xelari, broken after their loss, became diplomatic and quiet. Their worlds no longer bred soldiers, they bred historians. They dedicated one whole planetary archive to Ghost and the resonant doctrine. treating him as a philosopher of survival, a prophet of silence. Even the old races began to listen. The Elith, who spoke in harmonic clouds, translated Ghost's first signal into a sculpture that could sing. The Vom, ancient architects of black hole cities, built a listening post aimed at Earth and whispered, "We do not want to know what made you." No one dared provoke the species that trained its outcasts to haunt the edges of space like predatory myths. But through all this, Ghost remained the same. Older now. Slower. His scars more defined. His voice more gravel than fire. But in his eyes, the same flame burned. The one born in the dark corridors of a prison built by arrogance. The flame that refused to flicker out. One night, or whatever passed for night in his station, Scribe found him staring at the viewport, watching a nebula swell like a slow breath. "Do you ever wonder," Scribe asked, "what you would have been if they hadn't left you here?" Ghost thought for a long time before replying. "I think," he said, "I would have died a hero. Buried under a flag. Forgotten in a story someone else wrote." Scribe nodded slowly. "And now? Now I'm the ghost they can't kill. The one story they can't silence. Not because I was strong, but because I stayed." Behind them, new recruits trained in silence. One crawled through a vent barely wider than her shoulders. Another meditated in zero-G, learning how to feel shifts in temperature through her breath. A third memorized poetry, the kind written before Earth had even launched its first shuttle, so she could quote it into alien frequencies. Ghost turned back to Scribe. Some walls keep things out, but some become the soul of what survives. Scribe didn't answer. He just stepped back and recorded the words, as he always had, scratching them into the titanium bulkhead beside 100 others. Outside, a dying star blinked in slow surrender, and somewhere far beyond, in the black no ship had dared chat, something shifted. Not the host. But that was a tale for another voice, another silence, another ghost. And Ghost smiled, knowing he had trained them well. Asterisk, continuing. Unless you say stop. Asterisk. Q.